Hello everyone, welcome to Physio Brain. In this video, I'm going to explain in brief about the anatomy of stomach. So coming to the table of contents. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to understand about the introduction, location of stomach, shape, size and capacity, external features of the stomach, different ends and curvatures, surfaces, different parts of your stomach, arterial supply, venous and lymphatic drainage, nervous supply or nervous innervations, and applied or clinical anatomy of stomach. So coming to the introduction, so the stomach is an intraperitoneal digestive organ located in between the esophagus and duodenum. So that means it is an intraperitoneal organ. That means it is present inside the peritoneal cavity. And the stomach is the widest and most distensible part of the alimentary canal. So it has the capability to enlarge and relax according to the conditions. So this structure, that's an organ, that is an stomach, is an intraperitoneal digestive organ that is present in between the esophagus and the duodenum. So duodenum is the first part of your small intestine. So it is present in between the esophagus and the small intestine. And coming to the location, the stomach is situated in the upper left part of the abdomen, occupying the left hypochondrium, umbilical region and epigastric region. So stomach is present in the left part of your abdomen, which is covering those structures or the regions of your abdomen. That includes the left hypochondric. This is the left hypochondric region. This is the umbilical region, and this is the epigastric region. The stomach is present in between, covering these areas. That is the left hypochondric, umbilical region, as well as the epigastric region. It extends obliquely from the left hypochondric region into the epigastric region. The stomach is located in a oblique manner. That will be starting from, so it will be extending from the hypochondric region towards the epigastric region in a oblique manner. And most of the stomach lie under the cover of a lower costal margin and the lower ribs. So it will be present behind or under the lower left costal margin as well as the lower ribs. Coming to the shape, the stomach is mostly J-shape in structure. So it is a J-shape in structure. Its long axis passes downward, forward, and to the right, and finally backward and slightly upward. The stomach will be starting, or it will be deviating, or it will be passing in the downward, anterior, and towards the right. From the left, it will be deviating towards the right side, and finally it will be going backward and the slightly upward. So this is the position of your stomach. It tapers from the fundus of the left of the medial plane to the narrow pylorus slightly to the right of the medial plane. So next is the size and capacity. The length, that is 10 inches or 25 centimeters, is the length of the stomach. The capacity is variable as the stomach is highly distensible, because at birth the capacity is only 30 ml, that is 1 ounce, and after reaching or after attaining puberty the capacity is 1000 milliliter or 1 liter, and in adults the capacity of stomach is 1500 to 2000 milliliter. And coming to the external features, the stomach presents the following external features. That means it has two ends, that is the cardiac end as well as the pyloric ends, and it will be having two curvatures, that's the greater curvature as well as the lesser curvature. So greater curvature will be convex and lesser curvature will be concave. So in the greater curvature, you'll be having the presence of greater omentum, and lesser curvature, you'll be having the presence of lesser omentum. And you'll be having two surfaces, that's the anterior surface, otherwise known as anterosuperior surface, and in the posterior aspect, you'll be having the posterior surface, otherwise known as posterior-inferior surface. So you'll be having two ends, that is the cardiac and pyloric end. You'll be having two curvatures, that is the greater and lesser curvatures, and you'll be having two surfaces, that is the anterior, otherwise known as anterosuperior, and posterior, otherwise known as posterior-inferior surfaces. And first is the ends. You'll be having the first end, that is the cardiac end or the upper end. It joins the lower end of the esophagus and presents an orifice called cardiac orifice. And second end is the pyloric end, that is the lower end of your stomach. It joins the proximal end of the duodenum and presents an orifice called as pyloric orifice. The stomach is relatively fixed at the upper end and lower end and mobile in between. So you'll be having an upper end, that is the cardiac end. You'll be having a lower end, that is the pyloric end. So these two ends will be fixed. And apart from that, you'll be having the fundus and body of the stomach. So this part will be the distensible part. The cardiac end or the upper end as well as the pyloric end or the lower end will be the fixed part of your stomach, and the distension happening at the fundus part as well as the body of the stomach. And the curvatures, the stomach presents two curvatures, that is the lesser curvature and the greater curvature. The lesser curvature is concave and forms the short right border of the stomach. The most dependent part of this curvature, the angular notch or incisura angularis, that indicates the junction of the body and pyloric part. The lesser curvature provides the attachment of the lesser omentum. So lesser curvature is concave in structure, and you will be having an attachment of structure that is known as the lesser omentum. And greater curvature, it is convex and forms the long left border of the stomach, as At its upper end, this curvature presents a cardiac notch which separates it from the left aspect of the esophagus. The greater curvature provides attachments to the greater omentum, gastrosplenic and gastrophrenic ligaments. So the greater curvature will be convex in structure and it provides attachments to the greater omentum, gastrosplenic ligament, which is the ligament that will be connecting the stomach and the spleen, and gastrophrenic ligament. So these are the ligaments that will be connecting the stomach as well as the diaphragm. So these are the structures or the structures that will be attaching over the greater curvature, which is convex in structure. And you'll be having two surfaces, anterior surface, otherwise known as anterosuperior surface. This will be facing anteriorly or forward and upward, anteriorly and superiorly. And inferior surface or posterior surface will be facing backward and downward. In other words, posteriorly and inferiorly. And coming to the parts, the stomach has four parts. That's the cardiac part or cardia. And we'll be having the second part, that is the fundus. Then the major part, that is the body, and you'll be having the pyloric part. So pyloric part as well as the cardiac part, these are the two ends that will be fixed in the stomach, and you will be having remaining two parts as the fundus and body, that will be the distensible part of the stomach. And first part is the cardiac part. It is the part that is present around the cardiac orifice. And you'll be having the second part, that is the fundus. It is the upper dome-shaped part of the stomach that is situated above the horizontal plane drawn at the level of cardiac notch. Superiorly, the fundus usually reaches at the level of fifth intercostal space, that is just below the nipple. Hence, gastric pain sometimes imitates the pain of angina pectoris. The cardiac notch lies in between the fundus and the esophagus. And coming to the third part, that is the body. The body is a major part of the stomach in between the fundus and the pyloric antrum. It can be distended enormously along the greater curvature. And coming to the last part, that is the pyloric part. Pyloric part is the funnel-shaped outflow region of the stomach. A line drawn downward and to the left from an angular notch to the greater curvature separate it from the body, and it extends from the angular notch to the gastroduodenal junction, where it will be joining with the duodenum to form the gastroduodenal junction. And it is divided into three parts. So pyloric part is divided into three parts. That is the pyloric antrum, pyloric canal, and pylorus. Pyloric antrum is the proximal wide part which is separated from the pyloric canal by an inconstant sulcus intermedius present on the greater curvatures. So pyloric antrum is about 3 inches, that is 7.5 centimeters long, and leading into the pyloric canal. And second part is the pyloric canal. It's a distal, narrow, and tubular part measuring around 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters in length. It lies on the head and neck of the pancreas. So pyloric canal is present over the head and neck of the pancreas. Third part, is the pylorus or the great gatekeeper, is the most distal, most and the sphincteric region of the pyloric canal. The circular muscle fibers are markedly thickened in this region, which controls the discharge of stomach contents through the pyloric orifice into the duodenum. That is the first part of your small intestine. Coming to the arterial supply, the stomach has rich arterial supply derived from the celiac trunk, which is a branch of abdominal aorta and its branches. The arterial supply supplying the stomach are the left gastric artery, that's a direct branch that will be coming from the celiac trunk, and right gastric artery, that is a branch of common hepatic artery, which is a branch of celiac trunk. Next is the third, that is the left gastroepiploic artery, a branch of splenic artery. So the splenic artery is one of the branch of celiac trunk. So right gastroepiploic artery, a branch of gastroduodenal arteries, and short gastric arteries, that is 5 to 7 in numbers, that is a branch of splenic arteries. So these are it's just arterial supply of the stomach. You will be having a rich arterial supply, mainly deriving from the celiac trunk, that's a branch of abdominal aorta, and the arterial supply includes left gastric artery, left and right gastric artery, left and right gastroepiploic arteries, and the short gastric arteries. So this is the arterial supply of the stomach. So it is mainly coming from the trunk, that is main trunk, that is known as the celiac trunk, which is a branch of abdominal aorta. So coming to the venous drainage of the stomach is similar to your venous arterial supply. So instead of artery, you can write the vein. So you'll be having the left gastric vein and right gastric vein, left and right gastroepiploic vein, and short gastric veins. So these are the veins that supplies the stomach. The left and right gastric veins drains directly into the portal vein. The left gastroepiploic and short gastric vein drains towards the splenic vein. The right gastroepiploic vein drains towards the superior mesenteric vein. Coming to the lymphatic drainage, the knowledge of lymphatic drainage of the stomach is clinically very important because gastric cancer or carcinoma of the stomach spread through the lymph vessels. The stomach is divided into 4 lymphatic territories as follows. So you will be dividing the stomach into right 2/3. So you will be dividing the stomach into right 2/3 as well as the left 1/3 by a line along its long axis. Now, the right 2/3 will be dividing into upper 2/3, that is the area 1, and the lower 1/3, that is the area 4. and left 1/3. So this is the left 1/3 is again divided into upper 1/3, that is the area 3, and lower 2/3, that is the area 2. So in this way, the 4 lymphatic territories are marked out and numbered into 1 to 4. So we'll be having the right 2/3 as well as the left 1/3. So right 2/3 will be dividing into upper 2/3 and lower 1/3, and left 1/3 is divided into upper 1/3, that's the area 3, and lower 2/3, that's the area 2. So mode of lymphatic drainage from 4 lymphatic territories into 4 different groups of lymphatic nodes is as follows. So these are the lymphatic nodes that will be supplying the 4 territories or 4 different areas or zones of the stomach. The first zone is supplied by the left gastric lymph nodes, and fourth zone is supplied by the hepatic nodes, right gastric nodes, and second area or second zone is drained by the right gastric gastroepiploic lymph nodes as well as the pyloric lymph nodes, and third zone is drained by the pancreatosplenic lymph nodes. So these are the 4 different areas and their corresponding lymphatic nodes. Coming to the nervous supply, the stomach has both sympathetic and parasympathetic innervation by the autonomic nervous system. Sympathetic innervation, the sympathetic fibers derived from the T6 to T10 spinal segments by the greater splanchnic nerves and celiac and hepatic plexus. They reach the stomach by running along its arteries. The sympathetic supply to the stomach is vasomotor, motor to the pyloric sphincter, and inhibitory to the remaining gastric musculatures, and serve as the chief pathway for pain sensation from the stomach. So sympathetic innervation by the T6 to T10 spinal segments. Parasympathetic innervation mainly by the vagus nerve, and we'll be having 2 different trunks, that is the anterior vagal trunk and posterior vagal trunk. And the anterior vagal trunk, that is derived largely from the left vagus nerve and partly from the right vagus nerve, enters the abdomen on the anterior surface of the esophagus. Again, this will be giving 3 branches. So that is the hepatic branch, celiac branch, and the gastric branch or nerve of Letarget. The hepatic branch, which will be running in the upper part of the lesser amentum to the porta hepatis to supply the liver and gallbladder. It also gives a branch to the pyloric antrum. Celiac branch, which follows the left gastric arteries to the celiac plexus. Gastric branch or nerve of Letarget, that is the largest of the 3 branches that will be coming from the anterior vagal trunk, which follows the lesser curvature and distributes the anterior gastric branches to the stomach as far as the pylorus. So this is the anterior vagal trunk and this is the posterior vagal trunk. The posterior vagal trunk, this derived largely from the right vagus nerve and partly from the left vagus nerve, enters the abdomen on the posterior surface of the esophagus. Soon after entering the abdomen, it gives rise to 3 branches. Same branch like your anterior vagal trunk. So you'll be having the celiac branch, that will be from the celiac ganglion, and nerve of Grassi in the name given to 1 or more branches of the posterior vagal trunk, which arises at the level of gastroesophageal junction and supplies the gastric fundus. You will be having the gastric branch, that is the nerve of Letarget, which runs along the lesser curvatures and give branches to the posterior surface of the stomach. So coming to the clinical anatomy, so the first condition is known as the hiatus hernia. So hiatus hernia occurs when a part of the stomach protrudes into the chest through the esophageal hiatus in the diaphragm. So you'll be having an esophageal hiatus, that is the opening of the diaphragm, and you'll be having 2 different conditions, 2 different types of hiatal hernias, that is the sliding hiatal hernias and the rolling hiatal hernias. So hiatal hernia is a condition in which part of the stomach that will be protruding towards the esophageal opening of the diaphragm. So second condition, that is known as the gastroesophageal reflux disease. So this is a digestive disorder affecting the lower esophageal sphincter. It refers to the movement of gastric acid and food into the esophagus. So the gastric acid as well as the food that is present in the stomach will be regurgitating back to the esophagus. That is known as the gastroesophageal reflux disease. So this is all about the anatomy of stomach. Thank you for watching this video. Please do subscribe my channel and share this video to your physio friends and fraternity. Happy learning. Thank you so much.